G'day guys, welcome back to week 7 of Proxima Education Science Unit, where we are farming crickets. I thought we'd have a closer look at the food that I'm actually giving my crickets at this stage, because I did feed them this morning. And as you may have realised last week when you were focusing on the life cycle stages of crickets, as they start to get a bit older and towards the adult stage of their life, they actually require a few additional nutrients in their food in order to be happy and healthy. So if we focus in on the food that I gave my crickets this morning, and this does look like a lot, but I am actually farming for a few different containers of crickets. It's not just the one container you can see on your screen. But in this food, I have actually included some pumpkin. We've got some cucumber there. There's some carrots. We've got spinach. We've got lettuce. And we've also got some oats there. Now the reason for that hardier vegetable, those hardier vegetables like the pumpkin and the carrot and the oats as well there, is because the adults actually require some additional protein and carbohydrates. Because they're moving around a lot more at this stage, they burn through their energy a lot more. So when they were younger, the most important things were the really watery vegetables like lettuce. We had some fruit as well in there. We had apple, orange. They really relied more on the actual, the water, I guess, from that fruit and veg. But now that they're moving around, they need some hardier vegetable in there too. And of course, there is a fair bit of protein in the oats. So if you wanted to include those in your container, they can be quite helpful for those adult crickets. So we'll look a little closer at my cricket container at the moment. So as we move around on the screen here, you can see it's quite busy in there. There's a lot of different crickets moving around, the fresh food's in there, so they're enjoying that. You can see that they are still at some different stages. There's some little crickets there, there's some much larger crickets in there. You might notice that the colour of the crickets is a little different. You can see some darker brown crickets in there and some like lighter brown crickets in there. That's because, as we found out last week, once the crickets shed their skin in order to get bigger, they will actually have that lighter colour, that translucent look about them, because they've got that fresh skin. As the outer shell hardens, it goes to that darker brown colour, and yeah, as you'll notice, like the darker ones are usually the bigger ones, because they've shed their skin a lot more times and they're starting to harden up and get towards that adult stage. So guys, that's what's going on in my cricket container at the moment. It might be worth doing a little bit of independent research or research in your group to have a look at the different types of food that you could be putting into your cricket container to benefit your crickets at this stage of their life cycle. This week though, in your classroom, you're going to be looking at the different types of insects that are farmed both in Australia and around the world. So just like the different types of farm animals we have, there are lots of different types of insects that are farmed. They're farmed in different ways for different purposes. So we're going to be looking at that in the classroom. For next week, we're going to be focusing back on our crickets. And because you only have a couple of weeks left with your crickets at that stage, we're going to look at what might happen to your adult crickets once we take them back at Proxima Education, and the different ways that we actually use crickets once they are at their adult stage and ready to be, I guess, what we call harvested. So that's next week, guys. This week, looking at the different types of insects we can farm. Have a great week. I'll see you next week. Cheers.